Here are the latest updates from the Tower of Babel. The Black Dragon Guild decided to tackle the 40th floor of the tower, confident and ready to showcase their top-tier skills. However, once again, they returned empty-handed. Of course, the hero of this situation was none other than the acclaimed rising star, the #1 hunter, Flame Emperor, who once again managed to defeat the boss solo. So, Mr. Flame Emperor, without any failure, you've set a new record once again. Since the tower appeared, you're still the only one to have killed a boss single-handedly. Do you have anything to say? Hey kid, before you talk to me, why don't you change that ridiculous title? I'm talking about the Flame Emperor. Why don't you use my real name instead of that embarrassing nickname? So shameful. And that washed-up guy over there, he's our protagonist. The only thing on his mind was, I envy him. He can just say whatever he wants. And not only that, everyone on the internet simply adores this guy. Everyone wants to be like him. In most conversations about hunters, his name always pops up. I really want to be like the Flame Emperor. I need to be like him. After all, it must be amazing to have the whole world interested in what you say. I even heard he's incredibly wealthy. Oh, how I envy him so much. If this world were a manga, someone like him would definitely be the main character, and I'd be just a sidekick. Yes, our protagonist is quite down, folks. He's not doing well mentally. We need to help him out, guys. Like this post so he'll be happy. Just don't mention the Flame Emperor, or he'll jump into your comments. Don't do that. Back to the story, the journalist asked if there were many aspiring hunters inspired by him, giving their best because of him. After all, waking up after 20 years, entering the tower, and defeating a boss that the Black Dragon Guild had been trying to defeat for over 10 years in less than a month is legendary stuff. Everyone wanted to know his key to success, or perhaps a phrase to achieve it. As the sages say, power amplifies who a person is. With arrogance, he said he would share because a few words might help the weak. It was up to him to grasp everything he would say. Then he declared, those who are meant to succeed will succeed. However, don't get in my way if you succeed. Or who knows, I might end up killing you. Our arrogant colleague simply turned and walked away. People were ecstatic, shocked, wanting to know what he meant by that. But it seems that statement didn't sit well with our protagonist. After a while, pondering it, he started crying, saying, am I crazy? Is it really good to ignore people when you become so great? It seemed like the reporter was being ignored, but I felt like it was me. Oh, if only I had a decent skill like the Flame Emperor. Then I wouldn't have to live in this crappy studio or be underestimated as the worst F-class hunter with no skills. I want so much to become someone like the Flame Emperor. I'm so jealous. I also want to succeed with my own skills. Or rather, how amazing would it be if I had the Flame Emperor's skill? At that moment, we see a scene that fortunately only happens in manhwas. And what am I talking about, you ask? It's a scene our protagonist had seen thousands of times in videos. What he saw shining before him was a legendary skill card. But here's the part where I said it's good this doesn't happen in our world, because he gained this skill out of envy. Man, imagine if something like this happened in real life. Oh my god, it would be crazy. No one would have a decent skill. Everyone would want to be envious of everyone else. It would be madness. No one would be famous. They'd just have a face that was once famous. For our protagonist, this felt like a joke from fate, because the tower, agonized by his unpleasant envy, sent him a skill as a gift. The tower praised his achievements. With that, our protagonist was a bit confused and asked, wait, this is different from what I saw in the videos. Oh, why should I worry when I just received a skill card? This is the moment I've been waiting for since I got here. Besides, it's a golden card, meaning this skill is at least rank S. The system then began generating his skill card. Probably the tower system is very good, because the skill name was simply what the protagonist always wanted. I want to be like you. He was right about it being rank S, but the effect was very contradictory. After all, the tower wouldn't give such an overpowered skill without restrictions. First, it would only activate automatically after death. After dying to an enemy, he could copy a skill and make it his own. I ask you, my grasshoppers, what would he do with such a skill? He'd have to die to the enemy? What kind of skill is that? Okay, let's explain a bit about this world story. Or better yet, let's explain the story of the tower that gave the skill to our protagonist. The first thing you need to know is that it simply appeared in the world. Could be seen on the horizon from anywhere. Second, those who had nothing to lose were the first to step inside and see what was there. Of course, where there was a tower, there would be floors, and each floor was full of monsters from another world. That's where skills started appearing to a few visitors selected by the tower itself. Obviously, everyone who heard this news gathered at the tower and started hunting monsters. Now, back to reality, leaving that boring explanation, there was a journalist on TV talking about the 40th floor and the heroic deeds of our little friend, Flame Emperor. Upon hearing this, our protagonist started talking to the store manager, who was a nice guy, asking to take this news off the TV. And he asked why he wanted that. He asked if he didn't like the Flame Emperor. And our protagonist, who had already drunk too much, started to say, "No, it's not that I don't like him. It's just that there are people out there with such good lives. So why is mine such crap?" Acting like a typical drunk, he started rambling about life and said, "Listen here. Yesterday I received an S-rank skill, but what kind of crap skill kills you when you use it? I haven't even reported it to the Hunter Association yet, you know? Because I'm ashamed to tell anyone that my real URJ hey, vomit outside." And after being kicked out of the bar, our protagonist was very upset. He was even rubbing his face on the walls because of his hangover. But suddenly, he started hearing someone screaming, and as he looked at the wall he was leaning against, he ended up in an alley where the Flame Emperor and a white-haired girl were. The girl was begging the Flame Emperor to stay away from her. But our dear arrogant one didn't give up and started saying, "Wow, you're a great actress, aren't you? If someone saw us now, I'd easily say you're the victim here. Miss Saint, I poisoned your drink with basilisk stomach acid, the same poison you planned to use on me. Oh, really? If it weren't for my skill, things might have gone a bit wrong." And the girl started saying it was a misunderstanding, that she only wanted to do a tower raid with him as her teammate. But apparently, the Flame Emperor thought that wouldn't work out well. In the background, our protagonist, who was already drunk and hungover, saw this scene and felt as lost as an onion in a fruit salad, trying to understand what was going on. Things started to heat up when the Flame Emperor grabbed her by the neck, saying there was nothing left to discuss. From now on, he would be the one asking questions, and she just had to nod to answer them. Since he had a lie detection skill, it made no sense to lie to him. If she was nice and answered all the questions correctly, he would give her an antidote. The first question was the most obvious. He asked who had ordered her to kill him. She claimed it was the witch from the Black Dragon Guild. While thinking about how to respond, Prota started recalling the news he had seen that morning. Despite reaching first place, he was still the same. It was good to see someone truly courageous. At that moment, the saint felt it was her. And the news continued. This is the kind of hero humanity needs now. But the next scene was more villainous than heroic. And probably I wasn't the only one who thought that. In his thoughts, our protagonist began to question. A hero? This guy? He's more like a killer, a psychopath. I need to get out of here now. But our protagonist wasn't very good at hiding his presence. So the Flame Emperor started talking. "I thought I got rid of all the rats in the neighborhood, but it seems there's one left." Faced with all this, our protagonist started to think. That look is of a killer. Could it be that the saint wasn't his first murder? How many people has he killed so far? A dozen? 100? Or maybe even more? Strangely, our protagonist simply fell to the ground. Looking back, he noticed his shoe was there. But it wasn't just the shoe, but his foot. So the Flame Emperor started walking calmly toward our protagonist, as he trembled with fear. And of course, since he had no strength and was facing the number 1 hunter, the only thing he could do was beg for his life. But the Flame Emperor simply ignored his pleas and asked if he had seen everything. In tears, our protagonist said, I didn't hear anything, I swear." Leaning toward our protagonist, the Flame Emperor asked again, "What was it you didn't see? You think I'll believe that? Besides calling me the Flame Emperor, you were in the right place at the right time and didn't see anything? Wow, that's very convincing. If I were a bit stupid, I might have believed it. So, if you don't want to end up like the saint, answer me correctly." Prota started reflecting in his mind. The world was obsessed with someone like him. Then Prota mentioned the lie detection ability. If he used that skill on him, he would realize that Prota was nobody and nothing. Then the Flame Emperor said, "What are you talking about, man?" And with that look, our Prota realized he had killed the saint without any certainty, just because he thought she was a bit suspicious. Hearing this, the Flame Emperor pushed our Prota, saying, "How dare you say such harsh words? What do I look like? The saint tried to kill herself, and if I hadn't killed her now, I would have been poisoned tomorrow." Then Prota asked, "What do you mean by tomorrow?" With sarcastic smiles, he said he only had his contacts. Oh, and speaking of a liar, he was probably innocent, and with that, our Prota started thanking him for believing him. However, he had seen too much, so he should die. Oh, and I hadn't mentioned his name until now because it was now that he introduced himself to us, and his name was Yusuha. At that moment, Prota's life started flashing before his eyes. Or rather, a specific moment in his life where the director of the orphanage where he lived said that since his name was Kim Gongja, he should do well in Confucianism. Oh, and the reason for that is that our protagonist's name in Korean translated would be something like Confucius, and Confucius in Chinese philosophy practiced Confucianism. And like many people before dying, he started thinking to himself, I don't want to die. Why did I have to die like this? No, why did I have to live like this? Maybe I could have lived a bit better. Actually, I have the right to live a better life. If I just had one more chance, just one more, I would grab it with all all my strength. Suddenly, our protagonist opened his eyes and realized he was in his bed, in his shabby room. He quickly got up, totally confused. The strangest thing about the whole situation was that he should be dead. What the hell is happening here? When did I get home? Looking at his phone, he saw the same comments about people wanting to be the Flame Emperor. The same news he had seen before was playing on his computer. So why on earth was everyone saying the same thing they said yesterday? Or rather, today would be yesterday. Wait, didn't I just die? Reaching out, he commanded, skill card, open. Of course, the first skill he had was the worst of the century, one that required him to die to use it, but he didn't know the effect of the other skill yet. He had just stolen it from the Flame Emperor when he died, and it perfectly matched his ability. I want to become you. Every time he died, it would automatically activate. At the moment of his death, he would return 24 hours from the moment he died, with his memories and experiences preserved. And the skill is rank X, which means it could be extraordinary or exclusive, but I think it's more extraordinary than exclusive because now there are two people with the same skill. Now, everything made sense. This is the secret to becoming a legendary hunter, and that's why he killed the saint, since she probably really did kill him the next day. However, he even killed Proda, who was innocent. While thinking about this, the interview was at the same part where he said a motivational phrase or word for those inspired by him, where he said that in the end, those destined for success would achieve it, but even if they succeeded, they shouldn't cause trouble because they would die. These words left a bitter taste in Proda's mouth. Now let's see who will die this time. Suddenly, from outside, someone shouted that there was a fire. Looking out the window, Proda saw a large flame spreading through the city. Going outside, he saw several people with extinguishers and buckets. Oh, and just to remind you, none of these were normal civilians, because the place where he lived was different from the outside world. Actually, that city was made up solely of people who entered the tower to become hunters. So this place was more specifically the first floor of the tower. Running with the crowd, Proda looked at his phone and realized it was almost the same time he had gotten drunk and witnessed that scene before dying. So these flames were probably to cover up the case. All that fire attracted the attention of important people. For example, rank 2 of the Black Dragon, the Guild Master, Black Witch. There was also rank 5, the Guild Master of Healers and Pharmacists, the Master Alchemist. And even rank 10, the leader of the city's surveillance corporation, or Paladin or Paladina, I'm not sure. Many of these people stayed calm in this kind of situation. After all, this was a city where you couldn't just let anyone in. Since they were literally inside a tower with various monsters, extreme situations were common. At that moment, the Master Alchemist began asking where the saint was, as she wasn't the type to be late to help in emergencies. The Paladin said she had something to do that night, maybe a date, and since she had been hanging out with the Flame Emperor a lot lately, she was probably with him. Hearing this, the Master Alchemist commented, I don't know why, but I don't like that guy. Something about him scares me. Then our dear flame colleague arrived. Oh crap, who played with fire without my permission? Seeing this guy, Proda was extremely upset. The Paladin thanked him for arriving so quickly. As he handled flames well, she asked if he could help. But since this guy is a despicable jerk, he simply asked, hey, what do I get out of this? Hearing this, our protagonist got even more furious. This crazy psychopath dares to ask for a reward when he started the fire himself? But who cares about his personality? He's already a legendary hunter. I'm just telling the truth, it's not like people don't know what kind of person he is. That news saying, it's good to see someone truly courageous? Ha, nobody knows. Everyone thinks the Flame Emperor is just a slightly eccentric hero. However, I'm the only one who knows his true nature as a bloodthirsty killer. That's why I must kill him. It's not just to feed my ego or for revenge. It's for humanity, for the honor of hunters. After all, hunters are people who should hunt monsters. That's why, regardless of the method, I need to hunt this monster. Out of nowhere, Proda simply threw himself into the fire and started burning. People looked at him in terror while he thought, my god, it's so hot, but this is the only way to kill this monster. And so, our protagonist went back in time and he was in his bed just like the other time. And he was happy that the skill was working. Imagine if he had died for nothing. Since he was rank F, his skill had no penalty for use. Well, at the moment, we don't know exactly what the penalty for using the skill would be. But one thing I know is that Proda simply can't kill the Flame Emperor in his current state. After all, even if he had the luck to kill him, it would only make him go back 24 hours in time. Since he had the same ability, there was only one way for a weak hunter like him to kill the Flame Emperor. At that moment, Proda remembered an interview where the journalist asked the Flame Emperor when he had awakened. He replied it was on his 21st birthday, so 11 years had passed since then. Doing some basic math, Proda realized he would have to kill himself 4,050 times to go back in time. After dying that many times, he could return to the day before before the Flame Emperor woke up. And with that, he began his relentless deaths. Even though he had no penalty, his mental state was collapsing. But even so, he didn't stop. After many times, he finally reached the last one. Our protagonist was probably very diligent with the timing, as he always returned to his bed. So, I don't think there was much to do with a specific place. But putting aside these intrusive thoughts, he finally made it back to the time when the legend of the Flame Emperor had not yet begun. To set the record straight, he died 30 times more than the original plan, which was 4,050 times. Including the time it took to kill himself, he took some breaks here and there. He went back all this time to prove that the legend of that demon was not eternal. But now that he had been deceived enough, it was time to find his first hunt. The routine of our ex-colleague, the Flame Emperor, was very simple. At 11 a.m., he would get out of bed, complaining about his headache and that he shouldn't have drunk so much the night before. Proda even repeated the Flame Emperor's speech perfectly because he had repeated the same day 10 times to refine the perfect plan. He memorized that, without fail, every day at 9 a.m., he would wake up in the F-rank dormitory. At 3 p.m., he would hunt slimes on the second floor, where he lived, complaining about killing slimes all day. Looking at this, Proda commented that his 21-year-old version was just a common F-rank hunter, wishing for a golden card, just like he once was. He even started shouting, "Can't I win the lottery or something? I want to get at least one S-rank skill." Wow, I've seen this movie before, right? If the story continued normally, his wishes would come true in a week. However, this time, that kind of future wouldn't happen for a guy like him. Collecting the remains of the slimes he had killed, he started rubbing them on his body. So, at 5:31 p.m., Yasuha, also known as the Flame Emperor, decided he wasn't getting anywhere with the slimes. So, he went to a higher, more difficult area where beginner hunters would go. For the next 36 minutes, he would be alone, and this was the perfect moment. Our protagonist approached him, covered in blood, asking for help because he had been attacked by wolves and needed a potion. Without caring about Proda's state, he got furious, wondering what he had done. All the monsters in that place were gone, meaning he had no more monsters to hunt. Proda kept asking for the potion, but the Flame Emperor ignored him, saying that if he continued like this, he wouldn't complete his daily quota. However, being benevolent, he asked how much Proda would give him. At first, Proda didn't understand what he meant, and, pointing his sword at him, the Flame Emperor asked how much Proda would give for the potion. After all, his hunt had been ruined, and he still had to give the potion for free. Oh, poor thing, to a stranger he had just met. Did he not have any morals? He pulled out a healing potion, and the priest declared it was sold in the alchemy castle for 20 gold, so he would give 20 gold. But the situation wasn't a negotiation. After all, the priest was on the brink of death, and he still wanted to pay only 20 gold coins. Was his life worth so little? Proda even tried to offer 40 gold, but Yasuha didn't accept it. He wanted everything Proda had. However, our protagonist already knew he was that kind of person. The Flame Emperor threw Proda aside and realized he only had 60 gold at most. He even had the audacity to say that Proda was very poor. Still acting, Proda said those were all his savings. Hearing this, Yasuha declared, "Don't worry, I'll spend it very well. After all, that's how things work, isn't it?" And since he had the greedy coin, he asked for the potion. But the Flame Emperor declared, "I thought a bit about it, but if I let you go, you might come back for revenge later, and I need to live a worry-free life. Since you saw my face, why don't you just die?" At that moment, Proda simply crouched while thinking, "Worries? I'm the one who will live without worries." While in pain because Proda had hit his colleagues, he quickly pulled out his dagger and simply slit the Flame Emperor's throat. Of course, this was the first time he had killed someone, so he was completely suffocated, but he shouldn't have given up. So, he started saying that to avoid the 1 in a million chance of him waking up and threatening his life, he would make sure to finish him off properly. Proda did just as he said. Looking at Yasuha's corpse, he started commenting, "Killing me was expected, but something strange bothers me. Why did you tell me your name at that moment?" Finally, after 4,090 days, he realized, despite being a cold-blooded killer, he wanted to pretend to be a knight in a sacred duel. How dare he? Was he trying to act fair after killing those innocent people? As Proda shouted loudly, monsters began to surround him. In fact, they were the wolves that were normal on that floor. Turning around, Proda declared, "Here's your evening snack." The wolves began to eat his corpse. A little distance away, among the trees, there was a hill where our protagonist began to dig. Inside the hole was a backpack with 3 bottles of water. He simply took off his bloody shirt and put on a new hoodie. While ordering the tower to send him to the first floor, he began to reflect on his thoughts. Is it really over? As he exited the tower, he saw the bodies of the guards. He walked past them, trembling with fear, but in the end, nothing happened. This meant everything was truly over. And the best part was that no one knew what had happened. Absolutely no one. But he also wouldn't receive credit for it. However, the terrible legend of the Flame Emperor, Yusuha, no longer existed. After all the struggle, he felt he should celebrate. So, he returned to the bar he always frequented. The bartender noticed he was very happy. He was opening his hunter status window. He still had the same 2 abilities, but now only he had the ability to go back in time. However, if you analyze it, he didn't have any combat skills. But maybe it was a bit shameful for him to want more than that. He could already go back in time and simply steal others' abilities. Why would he need combat skills? After all, he could win the Merchants Guild lottery, or he could sell methods to clear the upper floors that no one knew about yet. In short, he didn't need to fight. At that moment, a very strange old man entered the bar, dressed in a suit, looking like someone from the Peaky Blinders, except for the red part of his sneakers, and with an indescribable tone, he declared, "Give me some milk and mix a little vodka and sugar with hot milk. It would be even better if there was no sugar or milk." I didn't understand anything about his order, and he really said that, if I'm not mistaken. Seeing that old man, everyone in the bar began to feel apprehensive, and Proto thought the old man was very strange. The number of people in the bar began to increase even more. Looking at the old man, Proto was struck by a memory. He thought, "I've seen this old man before. The number 1 ranked hunter, Sword Saint. What is he doing here?"